for a mixed martial arts champion. UFC star Jon Jones turned himself into police overnight after leaving the scene of an accident where he crashed his car, injured a pregnant woman.
A temporary suspension for Jon Jones was extended Monday by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, as it was also revealed he tested positive for 2 banned substances.
There has never been anyone quite like Jon Jones in the history of combat sports. At his best, he was so dominant inside the octagon that serious analysts, not fanboys, actual analysts, ran out of words to describe what they were watching. He held the UFC light heavyweight championship for longer than almost any fighter in the promotion's history. He defeated legends. He made it look easy. He made it look boring even, because he was so far ahead of everyone else. And then, outside the cage, he seemed determined to burn every single thing he had ever built.
He was facing the elite of the elite, and he never fucking lost, even when he was doing coke and he wasn't even training.
But the kid will not change. He's rotten at his core, and he will continue to up.
This guy is terrible, I'm telling you.
Jon Jones was born on July 19, 1987, in Rochester, New York, the middle of 3 brothers in a deeply religious household. His father, Arthur Jones, was a pastor. His mother, Camille, raised the boys with strict values and a strong faith. And the Jones household produced remarkable athletes. Jon's older brother, Chandler, would go on to play defensive tackle in the NFL. His younger brother, Arthur Jr., became a Super Bowl-winning defensive end. The Jones family wasn't just athletic. They were freakishly, generationally gifted. But Jon was different from his brothers, and not just physically. In high school, Jones wrestled, and he was exceptional at it, winning a New York State wrestling title, which is no small thing in a state that produces some of the most competitive amateur wrestlers in the country. He went on to wrestle at Iowa Central Community College before eventually dropping out. At 19 years old, Jon Jones needed money. His girlfriend at the time, Jessie Moses, was pregnant with their first child. He was out of college with no degree, no job, and no clear direction. And then someone suggested he try mixed martial arts. Jon Jones had his first professional MMA fight on April 2nd, 2008. He won in 23 seconds. He didn't stop there. He tore through the regional circuit like a force of nature. By the time the UFC came calling in 2008, Jones had only fought a handful of times professionally. He was raw. He was rough around the edges, but Dana White and the UFC matchmakers could see what everyone around him already knew. This kid was special.
Jones tries for right hand. Big difference in the skill level. Mostly with beautiful lateral drop right there. Making a little hesitant about getting clinched with. Oh, big elbow!
Jones made his UFC debut on August 9th, 2008, and won. He kept winning. His style was unlike anything the sport had seen. He used his enormous reach to attack from distances that made no anatomical sense. He threw spinning elbows. He used oblique kicks to the knee that kept opponents cautious and flat-footed. He transitioned between wrestling, kickboxing, and submissions with an ease that looked almost choreographed. But the moment the whole world sat up and took notice came on March 19th, 2011. The UFC called Jones on short notice, just 8 days, to fight Shogun Rua for the light heavyweight championship. Shogun was a former Pride star, a Muay Thai specialist, and the reigning champion. He was considered dangerous. He was considered a serious problem for almost anyone. Jones stopped him in the 3rd round.
To the body. There's the leg kick. Takes it. Big shot by Jones.
He was 23 years old, the youngest champion in UFC history, and the world had a new star. What followed was a stretch of dominance that is genuinely difficult to contextualize unless you watch it carefully. Between 2011 and 2015, Jon Jones did not lose a single fight by submission, knockout, or decision. He went through the entire light heavyweight division like it wasn't a real competition. Not slowly, not narrowly, convincingly. Quinton Rampage Jackson, gone. Lyoto Machida, gone. Rashad Evans, gone. Vitor Belfort, gone. Chael Sonnen, gone in less than 5 minutes. Alexander Gustafsson pushed him harder than anyone in a fight most people consider one of the greatest in UFC history. And even then, Jones found a way to win. Let's put this in perspective. Each of those men Jones defeated was either a former champion, a future champion, or top 5 fighters in the world at the time. He didn't just beat them, he picked them apart methodically, surgically, and often made it look easy. His statistics during this period were extraordinary. Jon Jones had one of the highest significant strike rates and takedown accuracies in UFC light heavyweight history. His control time, the amount of time he spent in dominant positions, was almost unmatched. People started asking the question openly, was Jon Jones already the greatest mixed martial artist who had ever lived? Dana White said yes. Joe Rogan said yes. Most fighters, including those who had faced Jones, quietly said yes. But here's the thing about Jon Jones. Just when the story was getting perfect, it started getting complicated.
The first serious sign that something was wrong off the mat came in 2012. Jones was arrested in Binghamton, New York for driving while intoxicated. He was 24 years old, a UFC champion, and he'd crashed his car into a utility pole at 5 in the morning. His blood alcohol level was over the legal limit.
MMA fighter Jon Jones has been arrested again for DWI and negligent use of a firearm. The criminal complaint says officers responded to a call about gunshots along Central around 1 o'clock this morning.
He issued a public apology. He said he was ashamed. He said it wouldn't happen again. The UFC fined him and moved on. The world moved on. He kept winning fights, and the storyline of Jon Jones, greatest of all time, kept rolling forward. But the cracks were there. His training partnership at Jackson Wink MMA had always been intense and complicated. There were whispers about attitude issues in the gym. His relationship with coach Greg Jackson, one of the most respected MMA coaches in the world, became strained at times. Not because Jones wasn't talented, but because talent at that level, combined with the ego it tends to produce, is a difficult thing to manage. And then there was the rivalry with Daniel Cormier. DC, Daniel Cormier, was everything Jon Jones was physically not. Shorter, stocky, a former Olympic wrestler who had been ranked among the best heavyweight wrestlers in American history before transitioning to MMA. Cormier came to the UFC with elite credentials, and he was the only man in the organization who genuinely seemed unbothered by Jones's reputation.
The things that this guy's blessed with, and to just take the chance of pissing it all away. He doesn't deserve all this.
The two of them didn't just dislike each other, they hated each other. And that hatred became one of the defining storylines of the sport. Jones beat Cormier at UFC 182 in January 2015 by unanimous decision in a fight that was close, competitive, and genuinely brilliant. It should have been the crowning moment. Jones, already champion, defeating his chief rival. The story had a clean ending. Instead, within 3 months, everything collapsed.
U.S. Anti-Doping Agency has informed Jon Jones of a potential anti-doping policy violation.
On April 26, 2015, a pregnant woman named Dominic Mitchison was injured in a car crash in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A car had run a red light, crashed into her vehicle, flipped over, and then the driver got out, grabbed cash from the car, and ran. The car was registered to Jon Jones's fiancée.
Just a few hours ago, a world-famous UFC fighter turned himself into Albuquerque police. Investigators say Jon Jones hit a pregnant woman's car, then ran off.
Jones was found nearby and arrested. He was charged with felony leaving the scene of an accident involving injury. The woman's arm was broken. For a moment, the entire combat sports world went silent. This wasn't a DUI. This wasn't a training incident. This was a person, a pregnant person, injured on the side of a road, and the man allegedly responsible had grabbed his cash and run. Dana White was scheduled to appear on Fox Sports that night and stated plainly that Jones had been stripped of the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. He was removed from UFC 187, a card that was just weeks away, where he was supposed to fight Anthony Johnson. The championship went to Daniel Cormier, who beat Johnson at UFC 187 to claim the title Jones had vacated. The hit-and-run case was eventually resolved. Jones pleaded no contest to a third-degree felony and received a plea deal, community service, and a suspended sentence. The legal system moved on, but the court of public opinion was far less forgiving. The image of Jon Jones, carefully constructed over years as a clean-cut, religious, community-minded champion,
was shattered, and it didn't come back together cleanly. But the story isn't finished yet. If you made it to the end of this, thank you. If you want more stories like this, the full picture, the uncomfortable parts included, subscribe and come back next time.